My name is Wang Kang. I come from Alibaba Group as a security researcher. Today is a great honor to be on stage to share some of my thoughts and my ideas during my research work. My research focusing on IoT, V2X, and cyber physics systems. I want to share some of the effective approaches from the open source communities so that we can build up some interesting, effective, productive communities in our cyber security community. Basically, what I think a researcher should be a sniper as well as an observer. Because if you look so hard on something, you can miss a lot of other targets. But we cannot afford to observe for the whole day. If there is a friendly, productive, and helpful cybersecurity community, watch your back, they will be very good. The core value of a community, I think, according to Mr. Roger from MIT, it's productive and helpful. What are our problems now? Basically, we are facing the Internet of bankruptcy, the IoT. We have already seen the bankruptcy of email, right? Back in the year 2004, some guys are using the technique of bankruptcy of email, that's ignoring all of the emails later on and just send every other an email that I'm bankrupted. Please send me another email if you rather need. And furthermore, we are facing the bankruptcy of instant messages, and we cannot handling so much of messages now. And we are facing the bankruptcy of read it never. Remember last time you want to save an article for later use and you never read it actually. And the bankruptcy of news, even RSS. The worst part of it is bankruptcy of focus. We cannot focus on a thing for longer than 8 or 9 seconds. It's basically the intelligence oversupply because our human beings cannot handle so much of information during the past decades. And IM failed and will fail again because we need to be forever online, and there are a lot of distractions and push notifications, and there are lots of clients with proprietary protocols. And even worse, they are flooding stickers and flatterers that there is no serious and helpful discussions. And even worse, there is centralized system. All of your data is stored on the IAM servers and no threading, no archives. According to the communication technologies Nyquist theorem, if you want to get the whole picture or an accurate sampling of a signal, you have to, the sample rate at least should be double of the signal rate, right? As for our information handling, it can be learned that if we want to get the whole picture of the research area, you need to read as much of the information as you can and as fast as you can. And there's another interesting thing that there are more and more popular AI categorizer that can filter messages for you. But in my opinion, we should not trust it. We should not trust AI categorizer because take this picture. If the vertical axis is good news and this is a bad news, and the AI categorizer will definitely report the good news for you. So you just think, I am the best, keep on, and ignore the chance of improvement for yourself. So this is basically why we shouldn't trust AI categorizer, in my opinion. And according to Dunbar's number, which is a very simple theory that a human being can only maintain an active connections with at most 148 human beings at the same time. So basically, 148 raised to the power of 4.55 is roughly the whole population of the globe. So basically, that is why there are a lot of hierarchy of reporting by level. But the reporting by level model has some serious disadvantages because there is information asymmetry, which is a source of the power, right? And furthermore, there are a lot of distractions, and we are in an ultimate war between our users and product managers. And remember, we have the keyboards 100 years ago, the typewriter, the QWERTY keyboards, right? And now we are losing it. We now are having touch screens. Once we had very fancy, very useful shortcuts, but now they give us gestures. And we lose HTML that everyone can easily deploy an application, but now we have application store and async email, and now we have push notification, and we have to be online forever, and we lose some serious news and productive discussion, and they give us stickers, right? They are thumb up, stickers, and cats. So we are basically now are the products. According to Time magazine, we now have a shorter, actually I now have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. The goldfish has 9 seconds of memory, and internet-connected human beings only have 8 seconds. So this is our problem. And this is a very interesting research that one guy used a high-speed camera to record your typing and your characters on the screen. So they mirrored the input lag. You can see this. Some modern computers are not responsive than the 20-year-old ones. And so according to Andy and Bill's law, our pro users' experience are not improved for the past decades. We are still waiting for the machines instead of the machines waiting for us, serving us. So this is basically the summary of the challenges we are facing. Okay, 8 minutes, nice. So before we want to share the further ideas, I want to give us the conclusions first, so you can take this in mind and see the following stories. Basically, I want to categorize our members into senior members, regular members, new members, public and random members. They have a lot of different behaviors, and they have different user agents, and all of them should be respected accordingly. And we have to use trusted categorizer and some board to bridge the clients together. And I have 3 parts of it. Basically, the first is leave no one behind, bridge everything, and keep everyone raise everything. To achieve this, we need to build something very fast. And we wait for everyone. No need for them to show up for every time. And we have to build a helpful and productive community, and we have to rule out some toxic behavior. I mean, by speaking of toxic, I mean these once this behavior appears, it will never come back. So let's first we want to learn from some of the big names. They are facing the same but the bigger problems, and we want to see their solutions. So Linus, oh sorry, I should pronounce it as Linus Torvalds. He is the father of Linux, right? He said only wimps use take a backup. Real men just upload their important stuff on FTP and let the rest of the world mirror it. And the other part of his quote is he don't organize his emails. He just keep everything in one big folder. And I have done some research of his emails in Linux kernel mailing list, and I found that about half of their emails for the past 20 years, they are written with Pine or Alpine, the modern version of Pine. According to the hacker ethics written by Chaos Computer Club, there is a code that says make public data available and protect private data. And this one is the email from the birth of Linux towards the Linux kernel. Remember, you can see this. The date is 1991, and the publish place is newsgroup comp.org.minix. And this one is the modern, the year 2006. He was discussing his email clients. You can see this from the year 2007. And he's using Alpine, its modern version, blah, blah, blah. And Linux Torvalds is facing the categorizer failure in the year of 2015, that around 20% of the emails is filtered as a spam. So he's very angry about this because there are a lot of useful patches, a lot of interesting discussions cannot be marked as spam so rudely. Marissa Mayer, she is the former CEO of Yahoo, I remember. She said she gets as many as 700 or to 800 a day of emails, and she needs something very fast. So she uses an application called Pine and do marathon email catch-up sessions up to 14 hours every week, usually at Saturday or Sunday. So what is Pine? Pine is a very old school but very effective email client, according to my opinion. Back in the year of 1989, and the Pine was the de facto email client, according to this guy from Hacker News, for many universities. And the Pine is short for Program for Internet News and Email. And remember, if you once used the Nano, the best editor ever, GNU Nano, it's basically evolved from the Pico. Pico is the built-in editor of Pine. And this picture is from slack.stanford.edu. Slack is short for Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. It's for the physicists. So a lot of the servers provide Alpine, and for the CERN, the MIT, they also provide Alpine or Alpine. Greg KH, he's one of the active maintainers of Linux kernel. During he once said he's trying to swear off of IRC because he thought it's a great distraction. So this is GKH, and our hero Richard Matthew Stallman of GNU Movement. His web page said he's abandoning cellular phones, and the way he's using internet is quite interesting because if he wants to read some web page, you just send an URL link to the server, and the server will fetch it and send it back by email to him. Quite old school, huh? And Lambie, the former leader of Debian project, and he even used email as a get things done style of to-do list. What he's using is he wrote some scripts that if you want to put this email and show up after some days, for example, a week after, you can just put this email to a folder name delayed.7 days, and the script will rotate by each day, and after 7 days, the email will show up again. Then you you will have a more mature thoughts on it maybe. And Guido van Rossum, he's the father of Python program. And he said, I read everything sent to his mailbox. So he just reads everything. So it's very interesting. And Donald Knuth, the author of Tech, right? And he's a professor of MIT, and he is the author of the book TAOCP, The Art of Computer Programming. And he has been a happy man ever since 1990 because he no longer reads emails. He has a very good secretary, wonderful secretary, and filter every incoming emails and print the important stuff for him to read. So this is basically our heroes. I'd like to show a brief demonstration of the good old days. So this, okay, let me show from the start. So this is a server, a public accessible Unix server called sdf.org, and I will log into it. Yes, and we have Alpine, sorry. There is a lot of, this is some sort of like the BBS style of the message handling. For example, this one is the NNTP server provided by Linux kernel called, you can read all of the emails discussions without subscribing to the email mailing list. And the best part of it, you can read from the very beginning of the discussion instead of the losing some before you subscribe it. For example, this is a WireGuard, and this one is if you want to read something from ext4, right? Yesterday's mailing list, and imagine if you subscribe to such a kind of the mailing list, you are definitely will be bankrupt of email. But I think this is the future of the community, because they want to build up some sort of pull model instead of the push model. Actually, this is an old school way of messaging handling and security model, right? You get a lot of messages, and even like the SGX, the patches, yeah, yesterday. And the next thing I want to show you is this is Gmain, which is a bridge between NNTP and RSS and mailing list. If you want to, for example, to read something from Debian, there is some announce from here. For example, they are electing the new project leader, and this is some of the news / dot. Yeah. Oh, 3. Okay. And the next thing is the AIOE. This is some sort of the Usenet server still serving. For example, you can find some discussions. Oh, it's not very active quite. And Mozilla is still using yeah, I remember this platform. They are discussing the development of, yeah. You can just reply to it. You can follow up to the Usenet server, or you can just reply it by email. Oh, yeah. Next up is, I can see the IETF. IETF provides a public accessible IMAP server, which is very useful. For example, I have subscribed. Actually, it's not subscribed. I just add it as a shortcut. And if you want to read some internet draft announce, you can just access the anonymous IMAP servers. You can see yesterday's message, and you can read something very fast. You can forward to your friend, and you can, okay, no, the permission is mark it as answered. So the anonymous one is not support this one. Okay, confirm. And the best part of Alpine is you can learn by exploring, because all of the help will appears at the bottom bar. The other commands, you can explore it. So, and there are some interesting emails during my exploration. For example, this one is the Linux birth mail. Yep, this one. I can see the headers, right, from Helsinki.fi, and is saying a lot of okay, progress. This is and another interesting thing is Tim Berners-Lee, the birth of the first web browser. You can see is published at Hypertext, and this is his signature. Interestingly, after 19 days, the Linux is birthed. Right, this is 91, and this is this one. Oh, yeah, after 19 days, Linux is birthed. Okay, this is basically the demo, a brief tour of the good old days. So, where is my pointer? So this is the SDF.org, and it's a public server since 1987, I remember. It's very interesting. Maybe you should register one. It's free, as long as you have published an email to the administrators to confirm that you are a human being, and you will get it. Very interesting. And this is some of the discussions, although they are not very active, but you can still see the someone, old school men are living there. And the next up, I want to show what we can learn from the designs of Internet. According to the first chairman of IETF, David D. Clark, he said, "Our best success was not computing, but hooking people together." David is now a professor of MIT now. The designs of the Internet, the inventor of it is Vint Cerf. He has 3 quotes that I personally love very much. The first one is, "The Internet is a reflection of our society. If that mirror has a problem, we should not fix the mirror. We have to fix the society." And the second one is, the more we can organize and find and manage information, the more effectively we can function in our modern world. And the third one is, information sharing is power. If you do not share your ideas, smart people cannot do anything about them, and you will remain anonymous and powerless. So this is basically what the designers of Internet, they are thinking. And the Internet design principles, Tim Berners-Lee, he said, he's the father of WWW, decentralization and tolerance. And David Clark, he published a talk in 1992, and after 20 years, he delivered the same talk with the same slides, and a lot of the sentences he said in that talk is still working after 20 years. Quite awesome. He said, "We reject kings, presidents, and voting, and believe in rough consensus and learning code." This is basically the motto of Internet Engineering Task Force. And speaking of Internet, the underlying protocol basically is a BGP, a border gateway protocol. The internet is all about the addressing and routing. So the BGP simply advertise network reachability with and forms neighbor relationships and use metrics to rank them. So what we can learn from the designs of BGP that each member of the communities, he comes up with questions, come up with answers. And if you broadcast your skills and your needs to each other, and the questions, answers, and inspirations will be passed on to you. And remember the software Mathematica. The CEO of it is Stephen Wolfram. Recently, he's publishing a blog post about his effective approaches during being a remote CEO of Wolfram company. They even built up a database called Who Knows What database on each profile page of the employees, that once one finds some problems, you can search through the category, the directory of the company, and find the right person to ask. And imagine this is you in a community, and this is a dumbbells number and 148 rows. And you don't need so many active users in your community. Imagine there are only 12 active users, and each of them has the ability to remember all of his friends' needs and skills. This community could be a very effective one. So actually this is like the designs of our network, the access layer, aggregation layer, and backbone layer, right? And speaking of the information handling model, according to natural language processing, there is speak, retell, and listen. And according to the book of elements of style, there is writer, reader, and communicator. And according to GNU Radio and open source framework for signal processing, there's source, filter, and sync. And according to email designs, there are accept, forward, deliver, and store. And for the IP tables, there are input, output, and forward. And for the MQTT, the IoT protocols, the publisher, broker, and subscriber. And they have tags called topics. Right? And for the Twitter, there's tweet, retweet, and like. Actually, we can learn from the common part of this is we often has a source, a filter, and a sync. Take Twitter, for example, the like is basically the sync because the message will end after you press the like button. Actually, Twitter, the CEO of Twitter wants to get rid of the like button. Note we can get from this page is a pure sync is not very helpful for the community. This should be avoided. And instead of private accessible technique notes, we should encourage our members to publish their ideas, their write-ups, and their to some, like independent blogs or searchable archives. And each of the discussions should be accessible for the later members. And this is a code excerpt from the year of 1988. Mark Crispin is the author of IMAP, which is used in the email system. This is very interesting because this part is his actual address, and this part is his email address. But he thinks the email is the internet. This is the ideas or thoughts from the father of IMAP. And so Tim Berners-Lee, on the left, he invented the web. And when surf, he invented the internet. But who invented the email? Actually, according to my research, this is a quote, and email was never invented. It evolved from very simple beginnings. And the concept of it, communicating via email from organization to organization, is the impetus for the element of the internet itself, and it's often called the killer application of the internet. So this one, we have already shown you the email from Tim Berners-Lee. And so why do people love emails? A lot of the open source communities chose email to collaborate, like the Debian. Actually, a lot of the operating the whole office procedure of Debian is running on email and Linux kernel. And in my opinion, people love email because the old school hackers, because they can choose your own client as long as it speaks the same protocols. And according to this link, the emails wait for you and is push technology and has a power of one-to-many. And it has a very successful but very simple model. We have the subject. Actually, the subject in my opinion is the abstract. Likewise in scientific papers. And except for the deliver and store messages and threading, this is the public accessible archive of IETF emails. You can just type into your interested group. You can get all of the accessible emails by IMAP. And for the NNTP or Usenet, it is the satellite, a lot of satellite services. The users will choose the nearest and fastest servers to do the news, and the servers will be synced later on. I think this is some sort of decentralized to some extent, but I think this is very fast for messaging handling because users don't need to wait for the message. Machines instead of actually the message is waiting for you. This man is a hero of Usenet, and he just rescued all of the Usenet archives by the tapes on his wall. And later these archives of Usenet was imported to Google Groups, so you can search back the Usenet archives because thanks to Mr. David Wiseman. Yeah, Wiseman. Gmain.org is a bridge for providing the gateway between NNTP, RSS, and mailing list. There's roughly about 30,000 of channels that are serving by Gmain.org. But I think Gmain.org are facing some problems that basically this site was maintained by a single man before. He's an active user of GNUs in Emacs. So the Linux kernel maintainers are worrying about this. So a few years ago, they developed a new project called publicinbox.org. So you can use it as a email receiver, the MDA, and all of the emails will be received by this some poor but very strong code. And the best part of it is publicinbox.org. You can simply mirror all of the email archives by git pull, because each of the messages is a git commit. So you clone the repo, you get the whole mirror of the email archives. And according to them, they are building the push model instead of the instead of push model. They are building the pull model because sometimes you don't have to read all of the messages. You just search for. Let me show you this. I fire up Safari, okay, and lore.kernel. Sorry, it's a bit of small. Wait a minute. That's LKML. If you want to do some research about some, for example, you want to read all the email published by Torvalds, you can just search it, and you can download it as a Mbox archive. And for example, you can search some of my name, and a few years ago, there's some. You can easily find all of the discussions and patches from this project, and you can clone the whole repo. It's quite useful. The best part of it, it is now served with an NTP. For example, you can remember if you use W3M, you just type into, sorry, too fast. You type into this command, you can get access to the email archives of Linux kernel discussions. Right. So actually, publicinbox.org can be deployed for your own communities. I think this is a very promising project. And for the newbies, the kernelnewbies.org, they provide some very useful links, documents for the newbies. And for the persons that cannot afford reading all of the messages, they provide editorial digest. Remember, we shouldn't trust the commercial categorizer, but instead of the commercial categorizer, we should use editorial digest. For example, this is a news from the source, the lwn.net. They provide a lot of the write-ups of news by the human reporters. They read every emails from the open source discussions. And they publish some of the interesting things. I call this the editorial digest. Actually, Internet Engineering Task Force, they provide a daily dose. Actually, this is generated by a robot each day. You can find different activities for the IETF. And LLVM, they provide a weekly write-up from the editors on the mailing list, on the commits, and news and articles, interesting articles from around the world. And there is even some interesting robots that automatically summarize for you, but I haven't tried this. Also, our practice, final part, I was a founder of an open source community called Tuna. This basically Tuna runs an open source mirror site in our country. Basically, it's one of the largest open source mirror sites. And a part of them, we also, roughly, we are wanting to be like the CCC in the Germany. So our practice, the first one is we want to keep everyone reads everything. So we want to decrease the latency of each operation. We want to keep machines waits for human beings instead of human waits for machines. And the best part of it, we want to our members to do database leak style news reading so that you can get the whole picture. So the members, just like, for example, like the SDF.org, we log into a gateway, and the information sources, some of them are RSS, so we use Feed2xec to pull them as a mailbox, because if everything is pulled for the real time, then the human will be waiting for the machine forever. So we fetch the news async by the machines, and the GWENE is some of the public RSS, like in the 30,000s of them are served in GWENE using an NTP service protocol to fetch to Alpine, and some of our members prefer the RSS readers. So, but this part is very important, because the RSS readers, we have to feedback to as a new RSS feed that everyone pick up the interesting things to publish to a new collection, so that everyone is a filter instead of a signal sink, right? For the mailing list, there are providers from the email services and Gmail and public inbox and news groups. All of them are pre-configured by the system administrator. So we just open new account for the members, then all things are set up. The next up is leave no one behind and bridge everything. Remember, there are a lot of different senior member, regular member, new, and random members. They have different use agents, so we build up bot to like a switcher to bridge the messages through them. And we also provide editorial digest. Some of them are for the public, some of them are for the random members to catch up. The most interesting part of it, the bot can be used as administrators that execute some friendly rules, like the sticker remover and some sort of the serious filter of the community discussions. So, for example, there's a lot of thumbs up. They basically are it's very toxic for a serious community. It's a proof of no work, and people will just push the thumb up button, and no one will say the interesting things. And the worst part of it is different from the emoji. It's very large stickers, so it will flood the screen. It's not very good for productive and not good for the helpful. So a bot is better because we cannot trust our administrators. We only trust the rules that can be enforced automatically. So basically we want to make human beings speak the language of human. In real world, if you want to push this kind of rules to commercial products, if you cannot push the product manager, you can, like me, be like a hacker, file a patent, and push again. Actually, this is a real patent of mine. And speaking of the blog role, this is a surprisingly work method of our members. Each of them are publishing their thoughts on its independent blog, and we provide a list. Actually, it's just a markdown file served in GitHub, and this is a full list. Everyone can submit a pull request, and we have a robot to actually it's Travis. No, not Travis. It's Travis.ci to compile the list into a single OPML file that you can just subscribe to the single OPML file. Then everything is subscribed. It surprisingly works. Very interesting. And we have organized some weekly meetup events. Actually, we are not getting any fans, but remember, everyone needs a filter, not a sync. So the speaker, local audiences, remote audiences, and async audiences, we want to keep everyone has a outgoing line and incoming line. So for the speaker, they can be yelled by the local audiences, and they can also be yelled remotely by the Demaku. Actually, this is a floating comment software written by our members of Tuna. Actually, we run the software on the speaker's computer. Then the comments will be floating on the slides. So the remote audiences will be connected. And we use OBS and to provide the feeds by Nginx RTMP to remote audiences. And for the local audiences, all the sound must be heard. So we build up something called, actually it's not built up, it's just a combination of some very inexpensive microphones that we call it the poor man's mic array. So in the discussion room, everyone's sound can be heard by the poor man's mic array and provide to the remote speaker and async audiences. Actually, there is no feedback line for the async audiences. We have to build some sort of time machine for them to discuss. Okay, some of my contributions, the last page. I have been providing some of the patches for Alpine. This is my name, and some of the publicinbox.org, and some of the Feed2Xe project. So key takeaways. The first is leave no one behind. We should bridge everything, respect each of the user agents, and consider all members. And newbies friendly, we keep our senior members won't get bored, and we connect remote members. And async is a new sync. We don't have to keep our members to stay online 7/24. And they meet up events, so we bridge local remote async and speaker together. And everyone reads everything. To achieve this, the first one is we provide accessible archive, so the message will wait for you. And this part I call is high throughput info handling. Basically needs low latency and large volume of message handling. And we have to speed up and let machines wait for human, and no information symmetry, avoid report by level and provide large volume of them. And trusted categorizers, do not trust the commercial categorizers. And even for the same group of people, we should build up more channels or more discussion groups for them. And we provide editorial digest for those who cannot afford to read every message for them. And helpful and productive, we rule out toxic behaviors with bot and no black hole. Everyone should provide feedback. And human routing, we should encourage our members to broadcast the skills and needs so that help will find you and you will find the helps. Okay, thank you. So any questions will be welcome.
I think the practice or maybe the process of this information handling looks to me more like for the text text information, like the news or the email. So nowadays the knowledge share more and more via the video. So any thoughts how to use the kind of practice for the videos, applicable to the video?
I remember
the information in the YouTube and this kind of information. Yeah.
Your question was if we can take advantage of the YouTube. In my opinion, maybe we can grab the automatic generated caption from it and do some data mining. No, not data mining. I want to so that members can grab the keywords from it, so he will find the right YouTube. And for the tools we are using is OBS. It's an open source tool. Actually, you can you can set up a lot of the microphones and the webcams, and you can be a director of your own using OBS to push the stream to YouTube or your self-hosted RTMP server, I think. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your time. Have a good lunch. Bye-bye.